Well, thank you all so much for being here this morning. And I am so super excited about this webinar. We've got a lot of folks on here that I know and a lot of folks that I don't know. And the cool thing about this is it is brand new information, whether you've been doing work with High5 for quite a while or not. A lot of what we're going to cover today is brand new information. There's a few pieces that you've seen, but we're going to dive right in. So welcome to this web class. And my name is Barb Moses. And today what I'm going to talk to you about is what you see on your screen. And hopefully everybody can see. If you can't see this on your screen, let me know. It's how to reduce employee churn, keep your business from hemorrhaging profits due to training and retraining new employees, and build a culture you love without feeling like you're being held hostage to competitive employment offers and having to keep those unproductive employees around. I swear that has to be the longest webinar title ever. And after we created that and I realized I had just sent emails and stuff, you noticed I just put it down to how to keep top performers. And probably should check with the Guinness Book of World Records to see if that's the longest one. I am guessing that for most of you, this isn't the first time that you've read an article, attended a webinar, listened to a podcast, read a book on the topic of retention, keeping those top performers. Because it's an issue that we've had for a long time. It's something that we talk about. And the first thing that I want to mention to you this morning, or this afternoon, depending on where you're at, is that if you have lost top performers in the past, it really isn't your fault. Some of you are like, well, wait a minute, Barb, that's about accepting personal responsibility. And also, you didn't know what you didn't know. And so we're going to look at some things that I didn't know until probably about 18 months, a year ago, that will absolutely change how you are looking at this problem and give you some new ways to look at it. So if employee challenges keep you awake at night and you wonder if you're ever going to figure it out, this is the time to put those fears to rest. My absolute goal is to get you back sleeping. And if your competition is stealing your team members, then we just need to make sure that your team doesn't even want to hear from them. So this is about setting you, your team, your customers, your shareholders if you have some, and we can go even so far as to say your families up to experience a culture, a team that you absolutely love. So where did this all come from? Let me get there we go. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics predicts 26 to 27% of your employees will quit in 2018. When I saw that statistic, I was floored. That means 1 in 4 of your employees predicted to quit this year. And I'm telling you, ain't nobody got time for that. All right, so as we dive in this morning, I want to know who you are, what your role is, and also what your biggest people challenges are. So Kevin is here with me. A lot of you know Kevin, and he's out there chatting. He's going to be monitoring the chat. So he's bringing up this first poll. And so first question, what's your role? So pick something that's close to what you are, and we'll see who we've got on the webinar this morning, just to make sure that I know who I'm talking to. And then the second question is, what are your biggest employee challenges? And you can choose all of them that apply. And you can scroll down to get to the second one if you can't see it. I'll give another minute or so to make sure we get everybody in here.
Hey, Barb, while they're doing that, let's remind them, everybody wants to take out at least one clean sheet of paper. You're going to be taking some notes. Barb's going to have you doing some activities here. So if you are not a note taker, you want to go ahead and get those pieces of paper out because she's going to have you draw some diagrams and take some specific notes. So make sure you have those resources available.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kevin. Yes. All right. So looks like that's who we've got that are going to answer our poll question. So let's go ahead and end the polling. Kevin, can you display that for us? All right, and so as you can see, we've got some business owners, we've got a bunch of people that are directors, managers, people that have direct reports, perfect. We got somebody from HR Talent Management, and we got a couple other people who just want to grow themselves. I'll take it from that, and that's awesome. And let's take a look at what are the biggest employee challenges that you guys are having. Oh, number one, hiring the right person. This is going to be huge for that. Retention, that's what got you here. Training and developing those people, recruiting them. Employee engagement is a high number. Motivating the workforce, high number as well. So you are absolutely in the right place. So let's get back to this. I'm going to just stop sharing that. There we go. And we should be back to the screen. So let's talk about what I am promising you for your time today, because I do know that that time is valuable. I will give you tools to keep your best team members. If you keep your best team members, then you can focus on growing the business instead of spending time and money, those valuable resources, hiring and training, rehiring and retraining. I will introduce you to integral leadership. And if you haven't heard about that, you're going to get at least a taste of it today. That will have you looking at your team and your business through a brand new lens. And I will earn your trust by giving you way more than you expected when you got on this webinar this morning. Those are my promises to you. Now, if you stay until the end, and I always laugh when I put this slide up, that means something else is coming. It means I just really want you to get this information and share with you through the end, because at the end I'll talk about a couple of ways that you can work with High Five Leadership. If you stay till the end, I got something big. And I'm not sure if anybody's ever given this kind of a bonus out for somebody that stayed till the end of the webinar. I will give you a free 90-minute conscious communications workshop. We're going to talk about conscious communications in secret number 2 today, and so you'll start to see what that might entail, and that's for 10 to 20 members of your team. If you happen to be in Southern California, I would be thrilled to deliver that live for you. Kevin could deliver it live in Chicago, but if not, certainly we can do that via web conference, and that's a $2,500 value. So why would we give you something like that? Well, we want you to literally get a taste of what could be different with the information that we are going to share with you today. And it's also a way for me to build trust with you. And one of our key messages here at High Five Leadership is I go first. So this is just one way that I can do that. Now, the fine print, because one of our other values at High Five is transparency, is once we give you the free workshop, we just want to have a chance to sit down and review the results of that with you and see if there's any reason for us to continue to work together. But not only will you benefit from the information from being in this web class, your team will get their own workshop as well. All right, so need your attention, please. So turn off those cell phones. I am going to cover a lot of information, probably too much, to be honest, for the time that we have. But again, my promise is to give you huge value. But this is going to require you to be in your present listening, to actually be here. So turn off those cell phones, put them in your desk drawer or whatever. Turn off Facebook, because if you're serious about keeping your top performers, building a high-performing team, getting better results, the next 60 to 90 minutes will actually change your business, and it will positively impact your life. All right, so who am I? My name is Barb Moses, and I am the founder and CEO of High Five Leadership. I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I am the master trainer of experiential transformational classes, and I love my life. I spent 21 years in corporate America and led the corporate training and leadership development team for a company that had 22,000 employees. And I loved what I did, and I had a fantastic team doing that. And then one day, while I was doing that job, I went to a weekend leadership retreat that changed how I lived the rest of my life. And let's just say, up until the point that I went to that retreat, I wouldn't have said I loved my life. It was okay. I loved my team, but in general, yeah. I took all of my experience and then I dove headfirst into what does it mean to do experiential leadership. And I became a partner in the organization where I originally attended my class. And then when things fell out of alignment, and we're going to talk today about alignment, so this will make more sense later, I made the decision to move from Texas to California and start High Five Leadership. In total, I facilitated the building of probably close to 100 high-performing teams. It might even be more than that. And since starting High Five, in addition to teaching what I've been teaching for a long time, I set out to learn more. And what I found is what I'm going to share with you today. It's called Integral Theory, Integral Leadership, and we'll talk more about that. But you know that moment in life, because you probably have all had that, where things just come into greater focus. I'm going to share one of those moments of clarity with you in a little bit, because it absolutely changed how I looked at my business. So what you see on the screen, you know, I got none of that stuff, all my background on the screen. This is what matters to me. So my team that you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, I get to train in San Diego and live. I love that. My brother and I, hiking, we almost every Saturday morning we hike Carl's Mountain. And then my friend Evelyn and I had the chance last August or September to hike the Inca Trail, 4-day hike on the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu that you see in the back of that. So just a few things that I've now made the choices to create that life that I love. So imagine what your life will look like when you have a truly happy, high-performing team. You have a culture that you and your team both love. People want to come to work for you instead of leave you for the competition. You spend your resources growing your business instead of on having to hire and train replacements. And you understand how to keep your business aligned. There's that word again, with your team, your customers, and with yourself. So how will that impact your business? When you have all of that, how will that impact your business? How will that impact your life? So chat me up here, all right? Is this something that you would like to know, something that you'd like in your business? And how would that impact your business if you were able to have all of that? So just a quick chat. Thank you, Miss Leslie Jefferson. Love you, girl. All right, and while you're chatting that, and Paul, is Paul on this? I know I got some Pohanka folks on here. So this is the point in a webinar that we talk about, does this stuff work? Do we get results? And so I'm just going to let this man speak for it. And this happened to be after we did a 3-day class for their team this past November. And after graduation, the next day, all of the past graduates welcome back the new graduates. And I just happened to have my video camera running. Paul, yeah, it is 1706, Catherine. Paul did not know that I was taping, but he has since given his permission that I share this. So 90-second video, just watch real quick.
How grateful I am for that graduation. That's really amazing stuff. But can I have your permission to take you back in time for just a minute? In 2013, I met Barb. Our company was struggling, you know, like the times. And we learned a lot from her. And as more people went to see Barb, things started to change. The fourth quarter of 2014 was a record. 2015 was a record. 2016 bested our best was a record. And now 2017 is a record. So with that said, I need your help. I need you all to walk through these halls with your chests out, being enthusiastic and carrying us into 2018. I want to let you know that this happiness is a gift. You can have as much of it as you want. It's your choice. Tracking yes or no? Yes. You can't let anybody take it from you.
Uh-oh. I did that.
How grateful I am for that graduation.
All right. Well, you saw most of it. But he's just saying you get to choose that happiness. I hit the wrong button, so I apologize for that. And I will report that Pohanka did have a record 2017, and my understanding, and I know these folks can say it on our chat, is that we are also 2018 is off to a great start. So here's what we're going to cover. Let's get into this. Enough of all of that. Secret number 1, 3 things that you can do immediately to keep your top performers from even looking for another job. Secret number 2, how to make your communication more conscious and why this is an integral piece to the culture you want. You see what I did there? Integral, right? Because we're going to talk about integral. And secret number 3, why what's getting your attention might be leaving your team wondering why they are even there. Now, if you're familiar with us at all, you know we don't like to do things traditionally, so we're going to do it David Letterman style, and we're going to count back, and we're going to actually start with secret number 3. Why what's getting your attention might be leaving your team wondering why they're even there. So what is possible when you look at 100% of your business, not just 25%? And you'll be like, wait a minute, Barb, I look at 100%. And I'm just going to say, hold that thought. Let's see if you still agree after we dive in here. So you've probably heard it said, what gets your attention gets you. What you focus on is exactly what expands for you. So as a leader, my question for you is, what is getting your attention? For most of you, the reason that you joined me today is because retention is a challenge for you. Some of those people problems are a challenge for you, and you're tired of spending your resources, your time and money every time someone leaves. It got your attention, which is what got you here. It's important as leaders that we look at the whole picture of what is going on in our business, in our branch, in our department, whatever your area of responsibility is. That's what I want you to focus on today. I'm probably going to say business or organization a lot, but just whatever your area of responsibility is. So here's where we start to do the work. So that piece of paper and pen that Kevin told you you needed, I want you to pull that out if it's available to you and you're not driving or something. And what I want you to do is I want you to take and I want you to make a grid. So turn your paper horizontal and draw a grid that looks like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. There is no grading for artistic skills. All right, so now that you've got your grid, the first thing that I want you to do is we're going to break that grid and we're going to look at the top half horizontally, and that is going to be about the individual. So you'll notice that we've marked it individual and we drew just one person in the middle there to say that's individual. Now at the bottom, it's going to be about the collective. So in our organizations, we have individuals, but we also have how we work together as a team. So we have the collective, individual, collective, individual, collective. All right, everybody with me so far? Can I just get a with you, Barb, or something like that on the chat. Just says, yep, got that done. Some of y'all are still drawing. All right, somebody. All right, so now we've got our grid. And now here's where we're going to start talking about, oops, I'm finished. Then on the left side, I was forgetting something. It's the interior, and on the right side, it's the exterior. So that makes up our grid. Right? What goes on inside that's subjective, that is not visible to the human eye, right? And versus what is exterior, what's objective and is visible. All right, now that's our grid. That's where I need you to get to right now. All right. So this is where we're going to start to talk about integral leadership. I'm going to leave that up for a sec just to make sure everybody gets it. And when we talk about integral theory of any kind, what we're talking about is a theory that includes all other theories, which sounds like, whoa, what does that mean? What it means is that when we look at integral leadership, it is a theory that includes all other leadership theories. So it takes all of that and incorporates it up, because all of the different leadership styles of leadership that you have been either using or you've been managed under, they all have good and they all have bad. None of them work 100% of the time for everybody. They don't. But integral is about knowing which to use when, where, and with whom. All right, so a couple of things. I have been studying and practicing leadership, personal development, culture, leading transformational classes now for over 20 years. It wasn't until I learned about integral that it all truly started to make sense for me. Because of our short time together today, I'm only going to be able to give you a taste of what integral is about. But my outcome from this first secret is to give you a lens to your business or department, whatever your area of responsibility is, that you likely haven't looked through. So integral theory, just to give credit where credit is due, because certainly it's not mine, it comes from the work of a philosopher named Ken Wilber. But he took, right, all these theories from all these different theorists and really just looked at it holistically. Now, integral theory covers everything, but today, again, we're going to look at integral leadership, and a couple of the people that I have studied are John Foreman and Laurel Ross. I've also studied where I learned integral, and I personally studied, is through my mentor coach, Dr. Matt Kreinheiter. So he has really helped me understand how this works. And kind of a fun story, it was during a session with Matt that got me to relook at my own business and also High Five's approach in our classes and how we do our coaching. Because when I first learned of integral, I literally jumped out of my chair. And so excuse my language, but I'm gonna tell this exactly how it happened, because this really hit me hard, and I said, oh my God, I am fucking up my students. So again, I apologize for that, but that's exactly what I said, because what I learned was so big for me. I realized that I may not be communicating in a way that everybody could hear me. And while it turned out to not be true that I was really messing them up, it gave me pause to see what I could learn to really provide the most beneficial learning experiences that were appropriate. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in secret number 2. So integral leadership incorporates all other leadership theories, and it's about when do I use them when. So here's what I want. So I've been using this word integral a lot. So in your chat box, tell me, what does it mean? What does integral mean in your words? What does integral mean? What does integral mean? Oh, this is why I can't see it. I haven't scrolled down. There we go. Connected, inclusive, important, essential. Identifying which personalities are beautiful. Okay, beautiful, being part of it all. Love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, so all good answers, all right answers. For purposes of what we're gonna do today, integral is essential. I'm just gonna say it's being essential to the whole. So when something is integral to something, it's essential to the whole. So let's put this into some perspective. So that circle represents our organization, the purpose of our organization, why that organization exists, right? So every organization has a purpose of why it exists. Whether everybody knows that or not is another thing. And here's our top performer. So that top performer plays an important role in the purpose of the organization. So hopefully that makes sense so far. So what happens when they leave? Boom, they're gone. They leave a hole in our organization. So an H-O-L-E in the W-H-O-L-E. And what I will submit that we have been lax at is getting our people, so this includes our top performers, but we can talk about every member of our organization, to truly understand how essential they are to the whole. Because the more that they feel essential to the whole, the less likely they are going to be to leave. So do your team members see where they are essential, or are they just another cog on the wheel, or another number, or another person to fill that spot? How are we helping them feel essential? So let's put this into some real dollars and cents, because I know that for some of you, turnover is an issue. What does it cost? So Kevin's going to pull up a poll. So Kev, can you do that? Thank you. What does it cost you a year to fill those holes? So think about hiring. We could go back to recruiting, hiring, onboarding, training, the loss of productivity while that position is empty, and then loss of productivity because the new person's probably not going to do it as well as the old person. The impact on the customers. So take your best guess as what that will cost you a year. All right, so we've got everything from 5,000 to 20,000, 20 to 50. So go ahead, Kev, go ahead and end the polling and just show them those results. So our biggest number there, and of course it depends on the size of your team or your audience, but $50,000 to $250,000 a year. All right, so that's a lot of money. So I want you to remember that figure. So we're going to stop sharing that, and I want you to go back to your grid. All right, so here we go. You're going to take some notes. So what we're going to do is we're going to map out the entire organization. And this is a really simplified look. Again, we only have a certain amount of time, but in the upper left-hand quadrant, that is the I quadrant. It is the quadrant that if you intersect, right, it's individual and interior. This is this is who we are, right? It is all of the stories. So that's a word that we use a lot at High Five, but it's the thoughts and the emotions happening within us that no one else can see. However, all of these things, self-awareness, mindset, are positive, you know, which is positive, negative, fears, emotions, what we value, what motivates us. All of that is the things that we use to make sense and give meaning to our life and our world. It's what we call meaning making. That's how we make meaning for our world, right? So that's us. That should be pretty clear. Over in the next quadrant, the upper right-hand quadrant, hopefully you're keeping up with me. If I'm going too fast, just give me a slow down, Barb, or something in the chat. to make sure that I'm there. But that's the behavioral quadrant. So we're still talking about the individual, but this is the exterior, this is the outside, this is what we can see. So we can see the behaviors that come from that person. That's the individual actions, how they look, right? The skills they're demonstrating, the knowledge they're demonstrating, what their response to stress is. So you know exactly what I mean by that. When somebody gets stressed out, you know how that behavior shows up. You know it about yourself, even more importantly. All right, so hopefully you're still with me. I'm going pretty fast. I got a lot to cover. Systems. All right, so down in the lower right-hand quadrant, then we have the collective. So the collective is, right, everybody that's within the organization, but it's the things, again, that we can see. So this is all of the systems that we have. So our processes, our procedures, our financial systems, our HR systems, what we sell, right? Our materials, our products, our reporting structures, everything that relates to our systems, all right? So that's the it's quadrant, or the lower right-hand quadrant. And then finally, we have our culture quadrant. So this is, again, the collective, but it's the inside. So how do we take all of that stuff from the upper left eye quadrant, and this is where we bring it all together in terms of what's our common vision? What are the guiding principles? And if they're not written down, trust me, there are unwritten rules that make up your culture in your organization, on your team, right? What are the group values? What are the relationships? What's the language that they use? How do they communicate? How do they resolve conflict? What's normal, right? Culture is just the way that things are done around here. So those are our quadrant. So, oh, love that you know that, Leslie. That's perfect. Yes. So with that, all right, I'm going to leave that up here. Actually, not a problem. I'm going to leave that up. We're going to talk about this for a minute. But I have a question for you that I want you to put in the chat. When you have a challenge in your business, which of these 4 quadrants do you typically go to fix it? Or somebody in there, which do you usually go to fix it? All right, so I've got a couple of I's, I got some we's, I got an it. And what I will suggest is that a lot of the time, so some of you have already been doing some of this work, so that's great. A lot of the time, the first place we look when we have a challenge, yep, Chris, it's the it's. It is the systems. We think that by fixing the system, whatever's going wrong in our organization, that's how it's going to get fixed. And here's where this is so freaking cool, because most of us have been giving 100% of our attention to 25% of the equation. We're spending a lot of our time down here in the systems quadrant. And so we're coming up with a new process. Oh, something happened. Well, let's change the process. Let's fix the process. If we do that, then it's going to be fixed. And my question to you is, how is that working out? Because a lot of you probably been wondering why it's not working. Now, if you've been doing some of these other things, that's great, but I still want you to see how they're all interrelated and why that's so important. Because if we've been giving all of our attention just to systems, it's probably a relief to understand that there's a reason why things haven't been working, because there's not alignment in what we're doing. So let's really, this is where the value comes in. So which of these 4 quadrants, so if we're talking about retaining your top employees, where do you think, which quadrant would have the greatest impact? So I got a lot of we's, right? And that would make sense, wouldn't it? Because if we're talking about our employees, it's about the culture. But we got to back up, guys, and we've got to start. Oops, hold on. I'm getting my little drawing pen here. Oops. There we go. We got to start here. This is why they don't let me out to play very often. Yeah, we've got to start with the person. So we've got to understand who that person is, what's important to them, because we only see and spend time on things that we value. So we've got to know who the players are. So we've got to know who that top performer is. What is their level of self-awareness? What is their mindset? What are their fears? What stories are they telling themselves? What do they value? And what motivates them? If we haven't taken the time to get to know them, then that's a challenge, because that is going to impact their behaviors. How they show up, right, impacts the behaviors. This is who we are. And it also is going to impact our culture. So I get why you guys all said it makes sense. But the I quadrant is where it all starts, because we are integral to the whole. We can't ignore the people, thinking that we can just say, okay, well, we've got this kind of culture. Well, if that's not the people that fit within that culture, then we've got a challenge. And that's why people start to leave us. Now, the other thing that we can talk about is systems. So do systems, so I want you to answer the chat. Do systems impact all of the rest of these? And if so, which ones? Do systems impact our behaviors, our culture, and our people? Social systems. Got it, Christine? Yep. Yeah, so, and Chris says, yes, culture and behavior. And what I'm going to say is that systems do have and can have an impact on those things for a short time. So this is where I'm going to come back to one of my own personal stories and why I made the choice to leave my last job is because it was there was not alignment in all 4 of these areas. So there was a system in place and there were things that were required, and the behaviors that were coming out weren't in alignment, and it created a lot of upset or just disalignment with me, and it didn't support who I was and what I thought was important. And at that point, the only thing that made sense to me was to leave. So wouldn't it make more sense if, when we are designing our systems, that we are looking at it through this lens? Now I just got a whole bunch of stuff. Let me clear all this. That we are looking at our systems from the person through the behavior, what behaviors, and through the culture into the systems. So we've been doing it backwards. We've been looking at our systems, and we've been working to make people comply with our systems and our systems for a long time. And that's the challenge. So now at least we realize that we haven't been looking at all of it. So sure, we know, right, there's a people, we know there's a culture, but how are we looking at the whole? We need to be spending as much time talking about how are we developing our people and what kind of culture are we creating so that we're developing what we're looking for to support the systems and to create the behavior that will get us to the outcomes that we want. It's pretty dang cool when you start to really look at what's possible, because when we take all aspects into consideration, we can then take more informed action with far greater accuracy. So is this making sense? Just looking for a yes or no. Tracking, good. Awesome, thank you, thank you. All right, so again, there's so much more, but I wanted you to see that when we look at our business, that we've got to look broader. And again, so what does this all mean? Oops. I need to get back. All right, hold on. There we go, mouse. To this point, if your team members don't feel essential, what's keeping them? So how are we doing that? How are we making them feel essential? And we're going to talk now about what we're going to do. So from this secret, real quickly, the organization needs to have a defined purpose vision. What is this organization about? And it needs to be done looking at the collective, right? It's not done in a vacuum. Ensuring each team member knows how they are essential to the whole, and then putting together a plan that gives equal attention to all 4 areas of your business. Now, this is just one component of Integral. It's the one that makes the most sense to look at first, but let's move on to the next secret. So secret number 2, putting it into perspective, upping our communication skills by understanding worldviews. Now, worldviews is another piece of the Integral. Yes, Paula, you sure can. Absolutely. So a couple of things that we're going to cover. What does it mean to be a conscious communicator? And how can we both say the same thing and mean something different? And I know that you have had that point. You've been sitting across from somebody, you've both been saying the exact same thing, and you wonder how we can mean something different. I'm going to tell you and share with you what that means. So communication, it is the #1 skill for any leader. And we actually offer a whole day program just on conscious communications because it will make and break your relationships, which make or break your teams, which make or break your company. The only way to get good at it is to understand from a bigger perspective, which is what we're going to give you today, and then practice it. Leadership is a practice. I think I will say that a few more times today. I'm just going to hit on a couple of key main points. Like I said, we do a whole day on just conscious communications. Because not only do our team members, we need to make them feel essential to the whole, but they need to feel like they are being seen and heard. That's what we just talked about. Now, for those of you who are familiar with High Five, you've probably seen this, but it bears repeating because this is what we mean, at least starting the conversation about conscious communications. Isaac, you're too funny. All right, so there is a lot of science behind this. 10% of the time, we are actually conscious or aware when we show up in our lives. And 10% they say is probably the absolute highest, probably more like 5%. 90% of the time we are coming from our programming. So let me give you some words. When I say present, that means I'm awake, I'm aware, I'm conscious. So this is where the conscious comes in. And I am choosing in that moment. So I'm at choice. I'm literally choosing how I'm showing up in that moment. I'm super right there. All right. The other 90% we're coming from our programming. And our programming is all the stories that we learned from somebody else, all the stories that we keep telling ourselves. It's our belief system. It's when we're on autopilot, right? When you get from the store to your house and you have no idea how you got there, but somehow the car made it, right? We spend a lot of time on autopilot. We do the exact same things every single day. It's our comfort zone, it's our self-image, and it has very limited perspectives. And we're going to talk a lot about those perspectives. So some words that y'all may be familiar with are when you're present, it's when you're listening actively. You're in your active listening. And I just actually found this one, so I loved it. Programmed is when you're lazy listening, right? You're listening through all those old stories, those lens and that filter, how you see the world, and you're not really listening at all. So the way the communicative process works is when someone begins speaking to you, you are in your present listening. You're listening to exactly what they're saying to you. And then during that communication, something triggers, so there's some stimulus, they said something that now triggers something back in your programming, your stories, your belief system, and you go into lazy listening, and you now stopped listening to them. You're listening to your own story, and you're really just waiting for them to shut up so that you can tell them what you wanted to say about whatever they're talking about. You stop listening to them at all. And, you know, some of us have even finished other people's sentences for them. Not that that's you, but it happens. So it's important to understand that this is the foundation of being conscious. What conscious communications are is just truly to understand that I need to shut off my own stories and literally listen to what's being said to me. Because as soon as I bring my story in, I'm bringing my interpretation and my view of the world, and I'm not hearing what they're actually saying. And that's a challenge. So the question is, are you a conscious or are you a programmed listener? So I want to do a really quick, some of you have heard this before, so it'll be interesting to see what we get. I'm going to do a really quick little listening test to see if you're a conscious or you're a programmed listener. And let's have a little bit of fun. So let's do this. So I'm going to have you add these numbers up in your head. And then when I ask you to, you can all throw your answers into chat, okay? So you're just gonna add these numbers up. You need to put those pens down. You're gonna do this in your head. So asking you to play fair here. And so you just close your eyes and listen. So you're gonna start with 1,000. Now add 40. Now add 1,000. Now add 30. Now add 1,000. Now add 20. Now add 1,000. Now add 10. Now add 1,000. So calculate your answer, and as soon as you have it, go ahead and chat it. So we got a 6,000, we got a 5,100, we got a 4,100, we got a 6,000, and some 5,100s. Well, good. I'm glad some of you are getting this. Awesome. All right. So here is, so high five to, Chriselle, I'm laughing at your answer. High five to those of you that have been working on your listening skills for a while. So, but let's talk about this. So what is 40 plus 30 plus 20 plus 10? And it's 100. Yep. And now add 5,000. So the answer is 5,100. But because we're in our programming, all you cared was add 1,000. So when 40 plus 30 plus 20 plus 10 added 100, it automatically made it 1,000 and came up with 6,000. Somebody missed, whoever answered 4,100 missed 1,000 there. And it just shows that we go back into our programming, we hear what we want to hear, and that's how it works. So it's just a fun little way to demonstrate that. And trust me, we all listen from our programming a lot. And it is the one thing that, that if we learn how to do that, it's going to get so much better. That's the first step. So I wanted to just lay that foundation again, because I used to think that that was the answer, right? I just needed to be more present. And it's so important. But even if we are listening consciously, what we may be missing is the speaker's frame of reference. So this was the learning that absolutely blew my mind that I talked about earlier, because I see now that I can be up at the front of the classroom talking about something and people are interpreting it completely different than how I might have meant it. And that's super powerful, because as it relates to those quadrants, right, I might be thinking that I've got this whole business figured out or whatever it is that I'm working on. But if I'm not understanding who that person is and how they see the world, what gives their world meaning, what their meaning-making system is, it may be different than mine. So I'm going to give you a quick example to explain. Hopefully you've all heard or been exposed to the DISC personality styles, the DIS or C. And I had a moment, so this was years ago, I was in a classroom and they broke us up into the quadrants, and I was in the D quadrant, and I was looking back at all the people in the I quadrant, the S quadrant, and the C quadrant. And I was looking at those people, and what I learned in that moment is that they saw the world differently than I did. And it was like, wow. And in that moment, I realized that just because that person didn't see it like I did, that they weren't there to just piss me off, or they weren't stupid, because there was a time I thought some people were really stupid because they just didn't see it the way I did. I'm just telling you the truth. And so it was like, oh my gosh, there's different ways to look at the world. So I started using the DISC stuff to be able to understand the different people in my life. That was huge for me. I still use it every single day. But what Integral did was it took it a step further. And now what I realized is all of those D's, and I ran into that. It's like, okay, I got all these people in my life that are D's, but they still don't agree on stuff, and they still can see something completely different. And that is because they have a different worldview. And so what Integral did is it introduced me to these worldviews. So we're going to talk about 4 of them really quick, so you can at least start to see why some of the people in your life you may be having some challenges with. Now, there are other worldviews. There's some that are below and some that are above or in the quadrant, but these are the ones that show up the most often. So here are these worldviews. You might want to take some notes on this. It's really super helpful. Now, the red worldview, and the colors come from Integral, and also something called Spiral Dynamics, if you've ever heard of it. Super interesting. The red stands for impulsive. So this is a worldview where people are all about being in power. So if you look at what they value power, they value protection, respect. They want to have control. They want to make sure people respect them, right? They identify with being very strong, courageous, risk takers. They take care of themselves. So this is the person that wants to control others. They want to be the one in power. They want to be the one in power. All right. Love that. Great one, Chris. He said Slytherin. So yeah, that's it. We do a little Harry Potter reference here. The next one up, and I'll put these all back up here in a minute, but I wanted to look at them each, is diplomatic. So the blue is diplomatic. These are the folks that view the world through a very traditional lens. There's a big percent of the population that look through this lens. They value stability, security, belonging, very tried and true. They value tradition. It pretty much, you know, there's a good and there's an evil. There's a right and there's a wrong. There's black and white. There's not a lot of gray in blue. That made sense. I know you got it. And they identify with being responsible, purposeful, self-sacrificing, loyal, predictable. These are the people, right, that will come and stay with your business for a long time because they're going to be that loyal. And there used to be even more blue in the world than there is today. So that's diplomatic. And what I want to say before I go any further is, so we're breaking it into 4. People don't fit into necessarily just one. They have a primary that they view the world, but a lot of times they'll straddle as well. So we're not just sticking them into holes here. That's very important to say. Orange is the achiever. So they're looking through the world through the possibilities lens. How can I achieve? And this is where strategic leadership really comes in. So what do they value? They value excellence, achievement, status. I mean, this is the person who's looking to have the Ferrari that says, yes, I made the $1 million. I got the goods to go with it. Very competitive, ambitious. They want to be known as the elite. They're out there doing it to be able to make a name for themselves and to create exactly what they want. So that's the achiever. They've taken that power. So the difference between red and orange is the orange drive is fueled by excellence, competitiveness, and status, while the red is motivated by power, respect, and glory. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about, and again, we're just going to talk about the 4, is pluralistic. And the pluralistic lens simply means that they're looking at it, they have multiple perspectives. So when something is plural, right, it's more than one. So these are the folks that really value connection, diversity, tolerance, very sensitive about the different kinds of cultures. They're very into sustainable. I mean, these are socially, environmentally conscious people. They identify with being non-judgmental, equality, right? It's all about collaborating and looking at the world from that perspective. So I want to put all 4 of them back up again. So you can see that they're very different, right? So I live here in San Diego, North County, San Diego, in an area called Encinitas. It's like total green, and they sometimes, like, it's all just about being together. Although I have a lot of green in me, I kind of call it the hippie people, versus the achiever is the one that's just hard driving to go be successful. And then the traditional lens is, you know what, let me just live my life in accordance to how life should be lived. And versus red saying, I'm going to go get mine, basically. And what you can now see, just understanding this, and such a little tiny taste I'm giving you, is holy hell. This is why I can say something to 2 people, and even if they're the same personality style, D, I, S, or C, why they're still seeing it completely different. So shows up a lot, just to have you connect. Politics shows up a lot there. So now what? So looking at this, we look at it concentrically. I think I said that right. So we've discussed so much, but now we want to take the 2 things that we've discussed, the world views and the quadrants, and I want to put them over top of each other. So, and I've added another circle around here, and that's the integral circle. We're not even going to get time to talk about that. We'll have to do another webinar about what does it mean to look at it from an integral perspective. But right now, if we just overlay the 2 of them, as it relates to conscious communication, an integral leader, what they do is they look and they listen for the explicit and implied frame of reference, right, the worldviews, and they actively ask questions into the other people's frames to bring them into view, right? So as a leader, I need to know what my frame is, but I also need to ask questions to understand what the other person's frame is as well. Because as an integral leader, so this yellow one, what we really are focused on getting to is where we're looking at it from a both and. So both perspectives have value. How do we look at it all versus an either or, which is where most people come from. Well, this is what I see. Why don't you see what I see? And that's where conflict shows up. So that is definitely a future web class for us to do, webinar for us to do, is on conflict. All right, so I've got one more set of dots. So this is where we just tie it all together. So let's say that in your organization, let's say you are green worldview, you got some people who are orange, you got some people who are blue. So now you start to see why there's conflict there. And as it relates to the behaviors, right, they're going to be all over the board as well. But your systems might be blue, which probably as the leader, if you're green, are driving you absolutely crazy because they don't align. So you can see where things are out of alignment. This is where I wanted you to see. If we're out of alignment, then that's what's causing the pain in your organization, the pain in yourself, the stress level. It's what's keeping you up at night. It's how do we find alignment? So it's not that it has to be one or the other, that green's better than blue. It's just understanding what you're creating in your culture on your team as it relates to that. Beautiful, Christine. I'm glad you see that. Thank you. So it is so much more information to be able to look at it from this level. So now you see why I'm so freaking excited about it, because it gives us so much more information. So I've got one more poll question for you. Kevin, go ahead and pull that up real quick. And I am cruising through. Kevin, maybe. There he is. All right. So what would be the value of having alignment in your organization? I mean, seriously, in dollars, if your organization was operating in alignment, so you didn't have any, I call them flat tires, right? Where something is flat on one side of that wheel, that circle that we just talked about, what would that really be worth? Because it's the piece that's keeping us back from being able to create exactly what we want. So, you know, retention. So think about all of it. Retention, productivity, systems not fully utilized, people not being productive because they don't know how they fit, people calling in sick, not because they're sick of not being seen or heard. So what would the cost of that be per year? All right, so Kev, go ahead and show that real quick. We got most people. And for most of you, fairly priceless, as you can see from that. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So that is secret number 2. So, wow, you've now got the grid, you've got the world views, giving you enough to be a little bit dangerous. And yes, you will get the recording to this for sure. And so let's move on to secret number 1. So this is kind of where we bring a few more things into play. Let me stop this. I'm sure Kevin can do that. Awesome. All right, so we did that. All right, so 3 things, and I'm actually giving you 5 because I want to over deliver, that you can do immediately so your team doesn't even look for another job. All right, so you know I love to connect dots. This is all stuff that relates to you specifically, right? I go first. One of our key messages, got to be the role model for your team. So what are the things that you can do, and it actually goes over in the behaviors too, that you can do to show them how essential they are to the whole, all right? So here we go. Number 1, ask for feedback. When is the last time, and you guys know this, some of this stuff you know, but the question is, when's the last time you did it? When is the last time you went to your team individually and you actually asked that person for feedback? And you made them comfortable enough, so we'll talk about in a minute how to make them comfortable enough to actually give you that feedback. So here's a few key questions, and again, you'll be getting this recording, so if you don't get these written down and you like them, you can go back and check them out. Great question. If you could change one thing about your job, team, the company, or me, what would it be? How powerful do you think that would be to ask that to each individual team member? And then really listen to them. That's where that conscious communication comes in. You got to listen to them. Don't listen through your filter or your worldview. Listen through theirs. Yeah. And Chris, that's actually true though. Sometimes it's a little scary to go out and ask these questions. I know you're kidding. Number 2, anything in your work world that's less than stellar, causing frustration or delays. What's going on with them? What's causing them frustration? What can you do? It may be super simple, something that you can do that will help them. They may hate their chair. Okay, we'll trade it out for somebody else who hates their chair, whatever. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? What would that mean for somebody to ask you, how happy are you? What can I do to make your job easier? What don't you like about my management style? Doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to change something, but at least you'll know and you can address it if it is a blind spot for you. That's what this is about. What are our blind spots? What are the things that people see about us that we may not be seeing for ourselves? How do you want to be rewarded? So what we've learned through the work that we've done is people are looking at it differently. People don't want to be rewarded the same way. They don't want to be managed the same way. This is huge. If you were in my shoes, what would you change tomorrow? How empowering. They may see stuff that you don't see that could make your life easier. And my absolute favorite, y'all, many of you have heard this, what do you need from me? What do you need from me? So that's asking for feedback. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, things that you can do immediately. So as soon as we get off that call, find somebody, ask them one of those questions. Give high fives. Are you out there catching people doing things right? Finding the things that are going right. So find a way to give a high five. And again, start to understand, ask some questions so you know what worldview your folks are coming from, because they may want to get their high fives differently. Some of them may want to have a little dance party with you as a high five. Somebody may just want you to send them an email, and that's okay. Give your time. So I went a little crazy with my little symbols here, but what do I mean by that? Get to know your people. For all of the people on your team, do you know about their family? Do you know what kind of movies they like? Do you know if they work out? Do you know what their favorite Starbucks order is so that you can surprise them someday and bring them a Starbucks, or maybe it's on their birthday? Do you know if they're dog people or cat people, or no pet people, or maybe they're fish people, right? Do you know if they like to hike or fish? Do you know your people? One of the most precious things that we can give, and this is to our, not only to our employees, but to our children as well, the people in our, anybody in our life, giving time. And then give back. As a team, find ways to give back to others. So disabled, Kevin liked my spaghetti and meatballs, but maybe we're feeding the homeless or building a house, whatever it is. And so you'll notice a theme in here: giving, givers gain. Finding ways to truly connect with your people in a meaningful way. And again, it's not like you don't know this. The question is, are you doing it? Because likely we're back, we're focused on our systems, we're back, we're focused just on the work piece, we're not focused on those other quadrants, and we're not doing this even though we know that we should. And the last thing that I'm going to share with you is be vulnerable. So this is the one that I always like. So is vulnerability strong or weak? Is it good or bad to be vulnerable? All right, so I got strong, good, good. Yeah, and for and it is hard. It is. And thank you for those of you saying, I want to say it's good, but and again, we're going to contextualize what we mean by being vulnerable. But when you are real with your people, they're going to show up more real for you, and they're going to be there for you. So what are some things you can do really quick? Share times in your life that you failed and what you learned from those failures. We all fall down. The inspirational part is getting back up, but we all fall down, and it's okay. That's part of learning. Share with your team what keeps you up at night, and ask if anyone has any ideas. If we don't ask, we don't know. They probably see something we don't see. So it goes back to that feedback piece. Share the feedback that you got with your team. So be vulnerable about, I didn't see this stuff. Thank you guys for giving me this feedback. Here's what's going to be different. Share a personal story. Share something about your family. Let them see the person behind the boss, and be okay with not knowing the answer and figuring it out with them. Because if you don't always know the answer, they are going to feel like they always need to have the answer and make something up or lie just because they feel that they have to always have the answer. That's a lot of pressure. You know it if it's you that's taking all that pressure. Let it be okay that we can say, we don't know, but let's figure it out. And then find reasons and ways to ask for their help, because that's how you make them feel essential to the vision. Yeah, thanks, Lenny. Lenny said, and attend high five. Yeah. So all of this stuff, it's stuff that some of you know. The question is, are you practicing it? Leadership is a practice. You've got to practice it. And then you get better at it, and you get better at it, and you get better at it. But if you look at everything that we've covered today, it's all about how do we create an integral culture where people feel essential to the whole. Whew. All right, so I made you a promise. Those are our 3 secrets. Have you received value from this web class so far? Just give me a yes or no. Awesome. Yes. Very, very cool. So this is what we covered. How to look at your business from an integral perspective, right? All 4 of those quadrants. Making sure that what's getting your attention is everything, not just those systems, so that you now are looking at why your team is so important and how to make them feel important. We explored what it means to communicate consciously and how different worldviews affect our frames of reference. And then we shared not just 3, but an extra couple things you can do immediately to start to make your team feel essential. You know, and one of the things that I love about the last stuff that we did, put a reminder on your phone. Until it becomes a new habit for you, if you just don't think about catching people doing things right or sitting down and having a conversation, put a reminder on your phone. There's no shame in that until it becomes a new habit. All right, so are you ready for more? So put in the chat box, I'm ready. I'm ready. Awesome. All right, so here we go. What does it look like to work with High Five Leadership? You get this crazy high energy woman, that's for sure. And so there are lots of different ways to work with this. I'm going to talk about a couple of specific things, and then I'm going to invite you to just have a conversation with me about what would be best for us and how we would work together. So, but I'm going to give you a couple of new ideas. And this first one is new as we're rolling out Integral into our curriculum, I'll call it. It's not even on our website yet. Oh, hey, Christine. She said it looks scary as hell to work with me. That's so funny. we have the High Five Integral Executive Coaching Program. That's a mouthful, but it is the fast track to becoming an effective integral leader. So what's included in that package? The first thing that you will get is our High Five Leader Intensive. This is our 3-day workshop. Some of you have been to it. And what's so important about this particular experience is it is 3 days to truly work on that I quadrant, the self-awareness, expanding your perspectives, seeing how all of those pieces fit together. In that, you also get feedback on the behaviors, how you're showing up. So you get feedback on the IT quadrant and seeing if that is benefiting you. And you also get to experience what it feels to be on a high-performing team, that we quadrant. So you have all of this experience now that you can take back and apply in your business. So the first thing in that package that you'll get is the High Five Leader Intensive. This is also something that you can buy a la carte, shall we say, but it is the keystone to the work that we do here at High Five. And if that was the only thing you got, the question is, what would it be worth to your business, to your life, to become a better leader, to see that bigger picture, to become a better team member, parent, significant other, friend, all of that, because who we take to work is the same person that we take home at night. So this is not just about business. We get to work on us holistically, how to strengthen our relationships, to have the tools to replicate your own high performance team at home at work, and at home as well. So that is the High Five Leader Experience. If you only got that, what would that be worth? But that's not it. You'll also get a personal integral strategy vision half day with me. So we can either do it in person or we can do it over the web. But what this is about is literally sitting down. So you saw that little map, right, with the circles. Well, this is the big map. So we sit down and we really look at your organization. We can also do it personally, but this specifically is about organization and identifying and refining the vision, the purpose, and the values. So making sure that we're super clear on what that is, assessing all 4 quadrants. So knowing in all of these different areas and all of these quadrants, it's okay, so where are they? And then we can just connect the dots, literally connect the dots, and we can see all of the places where we're out of alignment, right? So identifying what's out of alignment and putting together a plan to create the company that now runs smoothly, so we know who to go recruit, how to bring people into our culture, how to create the systems that will support what we want so that it all works together. So that is our strategy, our VIP day, that we'll sit down and we will look in depth at the organization. So now you've got a plan and you're looking at your business and your life through a different lens, one that you didn't know before you got here today. You see what is out of alignment. So this just brings so much clarity versus just shooting in the dark at what we think are our challenges. And you can see so many more bigger possibilities because we can stop guessing at stuff. We can just go deal with it, and then we can keep growing our business and getting to the things that we really want in our life. And we don't ever want to leave it there. So with that comes 3 months of executive coaching. Again, I'll be doing that at this point. Weekly 30-minute calls. It's accountability to the plan. No bullshit, no excuses. Let's get the work done. I don't want to do any, yeah, yes. Thank you, Leslie Jefferson. I don't want to do, the reason that it's 3 months and not 6 months is I want to just teach you how to do this for yourself, because it's all about, okay, once I understand integral, I can look at what's going on in my business and I can go just make the adjustments necessary. So in 3 months, we should be able to do that. Now, there may be some other things that need to be addressed. That's fine, but that's what this means. Email Voxer, which is kind of like a walkie-talkie, 911 access, 411, whatever you need. for those 3 months as it relates to getting this implemented and getting your business in alignment, that's what you get. So if you take, so that's integral in action, because our habits don't change overnight. Not that you've not heard this before. Leadership is a practice, not a position. We implement, we test, we celebrate wins, we celebrate learning, we change our approach, we stay focused, and we make it happen. So the Integral Executive Coaching Program is those 3 components: the leader intensive, the half-day vision strategy session, and the 3 months of coaching. You'll see the values there, totals to just under $15,000. And if that whole package makes sense for you, if you are on this webinar, that we will actually offer that to you for $9,995. And the way that this works, I'm not asking you to just drop 10 grand today. I want to have a conversation with you. So all I want you to do is to think about, is there some benefit to you about working with High Five? Because there's lots of different ways that we can work together. This is just one of them, and I wanted to show you what's possible. Some of you have already had the 3-day class, so we would have a different conversation about what's next for you, whether it be for your business or be for you personally. So to get that price, because that is significantly discounted, we're going to ask you to reach out to us by next Monday. And I'm going to show you in a minute how you can apply just to have that phone call with us. So here's my promise, and this is my truth for anything that we do at High Five. And that is, if our High Five Integral Executive Coaching Program doesn't help you retain your top talent, understand and grow your business, build a culture that you love, I'm going to refund your money. I'm not here to take your money and not provide you a whole lot of value. So before I go to that, I want to tie back to something. So $15,000, $10,000, go back and think about what you said it costs you a year to replace all your employees. And those numbers were pretty high. And Kevin, I don't know if you wrote them down, I didn't, but most of them were well over the $10,000 mark. And then we looked at what would it be worth to you to have your company in alignment, and almost everybody responded more than $250,000. So is it worth, if this is the right program for you, is it worth spending $10,000 to get $500,000 in return? I don't know about y'all watching the stock market, but I think that might be a fairly good investment. So just to put that into perspective for you. So again, all this starts with is a conversation between you and I. So I'm asking you to submit an application, and the application just gives me some information that I need before we sit down and have that phone call. It's about 5 or 6 questions. It's not hard, and most of them are just about you and your company. So this is the link to go get that. And Kevin, can you copy that or type that into the chat so they can copy that right out of chat? But this is the link, which is just the bit.ly High Five apply. So Kevin put that in there. And the question always is this something that I want to do now, or is this something I want to do later? And the question for me is, if we wait until later, how much is that costing us? And so is this some work that we can start working on right now, figuring out how to do that and start to create exactly what you want moving forward? I'm so excited about this new look because it just allows us to really take what we're doing already for a lot of you, the work that you've done, and taking it to another level. So that's the same thing. Again, that's what we got. And you can get started now just by filling out that application. Once you fill out the application, As soon as you do that and hit submit, it's going to take you to a link for my calendar. You can pick a time that's convenient for you so that we can just have that conversation. And again, it's not just about this package. It is just about having a conversation about what's next for us as it relates to how we can work together. So you made it. Yay. Give yourself a high five. Your free gift, as I said, was that 90-minute conscious communications workshop. So all you need to do to get that is to email me at barb@highfiveleadership.com and put in the subject free conscious communications. So this is for the people who attended live, and we really appreciate you being with us today. And I'm excited to do this program for you so you can see it in action. And absolutely, we are just getting started. So I want to take a moment. What questions do you have for me? And I was actually going to, let me see if I can find my, boom. There we go. I was going to come on camera. I guess Kevin's on, oh, not there. So, hi to everybody. Any questions? There's Kevin. Any questions? Oh, thank you, Mike. Mike's question was, how long do I have to apply? So to get that special price, you have until next Monday, which is the 19th. So, but the sooner you get apply, then the sooner we can have a conversation. Y'all are too funny. I am a dog person more than a cat person. And yeah, I would probably pick spaghetti and meatballs over either of those. You are so funny, Christine. And I do have a halo above my head of little things coming out. Awesome. Very fun, very, very fun. Any other questions? So again, just go to that link, fill out the application. We'll set up a conversation. We'll figure out what makes sense so that we can really create this integral culture for you. Oh, Paula asked a good question. How do I create problem solvers rather than accusers? Personal accountability. Yeah, so that's the I quadrant, right, that we need to continue to work on, Paula, with your team. And as a result, so that they can start to become more aware of what's happening. So that's the piece where we've got to continue to focus in on what's creating that in your organization, how we do that. So when we look at it from an integral perspective, it'll give us a new lens that we can look at that. Mike asked, if I need to share this with someone else on my team, how do I do it? Now we are going to, and I make sure I understand your question, Mike. We are going to be sending you guys the replay to this webinar, so you're welcome to share it there. And the other thing that we'll be doing is we'll be sending out the link to that application so that if somebody wants to set up a call, we can do that as well. And awesome. Thank you, Michael Atkins, for joining us, and everybody else. Oh, and yes, you absolutely, if you're not sure if you want to do that program, but again, it's not just about that program, just fill out the application. That just gets you to my calendar so that we can have a conversation about what's next. Because again, that program is not going to be appropriate for everybody. All you need to do is apply, then we can have the conversation. And definitely do that now. So we need to have that conversation sooner than later so we can start working on what makes sense. And if you apply, you are not committing to anything. You are absolutely just exploring it to see if it's a good fit. It also needs to be a good fit for us as well. So those are great questions, and I appreciate that so much. Awesome. Anything else? Very good. All right. Well, yes, we will see you later, Lenny. And Awesome. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to having those conversations with every single one of you who has attended live, those of you that are watching the replay as well. Looking forward to having those conversations and getting to know you and being part of your team as we create that next level of leadership, integral leadership. All right. Love you all. Have an incredible day. And of course, here at High Five Leadership, we choose joy. Talk to you later. Bye.